Spirited is directed by Sean Anders and stars Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell, and I'm very excited to give you guys my review for this movie. If you've seen it, be sure to leave a comment what you thought about it. As well, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Now let's get into this review. So Spirited is the latest adaptation of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. There are so many adaptations of this story. I myself grew up with the 1951 version with Alastair Sim as Scrooge. And I feel like everybody has like their version of this story that they grew up with. That was mine, and this is the latest adaptation, and it's a very different adaptation, which is one of the things I kind of respect about this movie, because I find a lot of remakes or retellings of stories are very similar to one another, which is why I don't always like remakes, but this one is definitely different, and for me it stands out from other versions of this story. And with it being a comedy and musical, it stood out for me, and I thought it was actually quite good in my opinion. I've been looking at some reviews and seen some mixed responses, but for me, I enjoyed this more than I thought I was going to. I was expecting it to be just like a throwaway Christmas movie, but yeah, I had fun. I thought there was actually a fair bit of heart in this movie. Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell are both great in this movie. I thought they were quite funny in this. I was actually pleasantly surprised by the humor in this. It worked more than I thought it was going to for me. But they're both really good. They worked very well together in this. And as I mentioned, this is also a musical, so there's quite a few musical numbers in this. And again, I was surprised by how much I actually enjoyed the musical part of this movie. I wasn't sure how that was going to go, especially since this cast aren't really known for singing, but I thought they worked. I thought the songs were fun. I thought the choreography with all the dancing was really well done, and yeah, I enjoyed watching it. And like I said, I was pleasantly surprised by it. I did not expect to enjoy it this much. It's not, anything groundbreaking, but it was just a fun movie, which I was happy by. It was quite nice. The humor, like I said, for the most part worked, and it does have some good heart to it, and it does things differently. Like, it's an adaptation of A Christmas Carol story, but it is very different. And if you look at probably the trailers and stuff, I didn't, but I'm sure if you did, you would get that impression. Again, with it being a comedy and a musical, that makes it different. But even the overall story, there's similar beats, but they do different things with it. And this, Will Ferrell plays the ghost of Christmas Present. As well, Ryan Reynolds plays this character Clint, who is sort of like the Scrooge of this movie, who the ghosts are showing him his past, present, future to get him to stop being the way he is. So you get that's sort of a bit more of the predictable side of the story, because that's what this story's about. It's always been like that. But they do some other stuff with Will Ferrell's character as the ghost of Christmas Present. His sort of story in this, what they were doing with him, I thought was pretty good. There was an interesting dynamic with him and Ryan Reynolds with their storylines that I thought was good. There were some other things that they did which I wasn't against, but it was predictable for me. Like, they had a twist sort of midway through, and I had already guessed it was coming. And maybe it wasn't supposed to be a huge surprise because the movie kind of hinted at it at one point, but like, I guessed, I have a feeling this is coming. It did, and it was fine. Like, it wasn't anything like, oh, I wish I didn't do that. It was just predictable. And I think one of the weaknesses of this movie is it was fairly predictable for the most part. So there are some stuff that I didn't quite see coming. But yeah, there were parts that were definitely predictable. It's not got many surprises other than that one in the middle, which was still predictable. So yeah, that was one of my weaknesses for this. Another one, while the comedy surprisingly worked for me, there were moments when they were going for more emotional scenes, and they were actually working for me. But then within the same scene, they would have jokes afterwards, and it kind of undermined it a bit for me. I think some people will be fine with it, but I kind of wish they gave that whole scene the same tone to just let it like sink in a bit, especially because, well, I understand they're going for a comedy version of this story, traditionally while it has a happy ending, it's not exactly a happy movie through its run, or a happy story, should I say. So I don't know, myself, just knowing what that story was like, at least in the version I grew up with, I would have liked it if they kept those scenes just for the emotional moments, not have humor in the same scene. Because like I said, the emotion was there, it was working for me, but then they cut to a joke in the same scene. It's like, kind of undermined it, because it is traditionally a more, not exactly happy story. So yeah, that bugged me a bit too. I'd say my other big issue with this movie was the runtime. It's about 2 hours and 7 minutes. I think it could have been a little bit shorter, because there were some parts where I just felt like they were just dragging on a little bit too long, especially in the end. You could start feeling the runtime a bit more. I think if it was more like maybe hour 45, hour 50, it would have been better. Not a huge issue, but there are definitely moments where I'm like, okay, we could maybe cut that or shorten it. But other than that, I thought it was a pretty fun movie. Like, I was pleasantly surprised. The humor worked more than I thought it would. Obviously not every joke lands, but it's a movie full of comedy, so you're gonna get that. The musical portion of this movie too worked more than I thought it was going to. Like I said, I wasn't really expecting to like this movie that much. When I just sort of heard the idea of it, I was like, okay, I'm not sure that's gonna work, but for me it did. I know it's not working for everybody, which is fine, but I laughed in this. I thought the music was fun. The overall story, well, familiar and predictable. I thought it worked for this. They add some extra stuff too, which I thought helped make it stand out. And yeah, overall I enjoyed this. So I would give Spirited a 74%. So yeah, I pleasantly surprised, as I've said many times in this review. If you guys have seen this movie, let me know what you thought about it. Maybe you're one of the people who weren't too big on it, which is great. Let me know why. Or maybe you're like me and somebody who really enjoyed it, was very pleasantly surprised by it. Let me know your thoughts as well. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and stay tuned for some more reviews soon. I'm hoping to have a review out for Old soon. That's the new M. Night Shyamalan movie, so stay tuned for that. And until my next review, take care everybody.